Welcome. We have Amanda and Dave here with us from the Wiggly Bridge Distillery and a few other businesses in town too, I'm sure.
Yep.
How many businesses do you guys own and operate currently?
A handful of them, where each of us in the family kind of manages one of them. Ranges from the distillery, which is our newest one, to a hair salon, to a campground, and car wash.
That's awesome. Oh, watch the mic falling. That's awesome. Yeah, you guys are kind of a well-known staple in town. I feel like the whole Woods family is, and do a lot of great things for town, and own and operate several very successful small businesses in town. So it's it's stuff I like to talk about in here, just small business stuff and everything, and empowering other people to in this town that's like so great for small businesses. It's really like a locally minded town, typically, for sure.
For sure.
How'd you guys kind of get started? Like one of the things I always think was like, how does somebody get into distilling whiskey? Like, how does that come about? It's like an idea. I'm gonna make this liquor today, and we're gonna grow this into this huge business.
That's probably our biggest question that a lot of people ask, and it honestly started with a joke at a family dinner. I kind of threw out the idea of like, oh, we should make bourbon, and then my dad and I both did kind of like a double take towards each other, and after that moment, it was all over. So it was researching and going to trade shows and just consuming all the knowledge. And I think that's what was so enjoyable for us. We're still learning to this day how to better the process and just expand our knowledge. And for us, we love learning and consuming that kind of stuff. So
did it start out as like a love for bourbon? Like you just kind of,
we both enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was I kind of ruined Christmas gifts for my dad because I always used to get him a different brand a year.
Yeah.
So now
it's just the Wiggly Bridge brand every year.
Right. I'll have to find a secret bottle somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, sure. It looks like it.
My favorite story is that David learned how to weld off of YouTube just by watching YouTube videos. And that's how we made our stills.
Oh, wow.
We were able, the distilling industry is not for the faint of heart. There's so many regulations. There's so much you have to look for. And then it's not cheap to get into. So we were able to become a craft distillery because of the things that we did to do ourselves to get us going. So we eliminated a huge investment cost by purchasing just the raw copper and David welding himself. So that was a huge step for us to be able to do what we do.
Yeah,
even
that's
our
awesome.
Fermenters, we had used 55-gallon brute trash cans, the food grade white containers.
Yeah.
And on eBay, my dad found a 50-gallon cook kettle that came from Florida that was in a school. So we were just hand paddle mixing like with a stainless steel ore pretty much our first batches, and then we upgraded to a drill, and then we had like a spaghetti sauce blender attachment on that. So
oh my god,
we did it the really hard way.
Yeah. And that's like the kind of a lot of small businesses when they start out, it's just like kind of making it work basically at the beginning. There, scrapping for every dollar and saving where you can. You kind of have to. It's like every small business is kind of like that.
Yeah, definitely. It builds grit though.
Oh yeah. The scary part was we didn't know if it was going to be any good, so we're doing all this work, and then it goes and sits in a barrel for years, and we're like, all right, let's take our first sip. And
oh yeah, that must be one of the toughest parts. Just like you gotta wait a few years before you can even try if what you've just done for the past whatever number of years was even worth it. And
it's just where we hadn't had experience. Like, oh, what if we up the corn percentage or do a little more rye? Like we didn't know were we going to be doing something good or something drastically bad, and we made all this product that we can't bottle because it doesn't meet our standards. So
this is kind of like all that hard work down the drain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have anyone along the way that kind of helped you guys out, mentor you in a way with distilling?
There's some online forums that we would use if we'd get stuck, like in the beginning, because we were hand paddling, the corn would turn into cement, like literally just one hard brick. So it was like, all right, what do we need to do with that? So we'd research like pH and different enzymes you can use, and then we found out that our pH meter wasn't calibrated properly. God. So we were like 3 points high, so we were just not in tolerance, but just people along the way. Black Swan Barrel Cooperage, they helped us a lot. They're a really small family business, and being small, I feel like you're more giving with information. You're not as guarded as like, oh, I'm going to give up the secret sauce. We have people come in and literally give you our recipe, the type of yeast we use. And it's just, we're not trying to protect anything.
We love sharing what we do.
Yeah.
It's why we keep doing it and pushing through the challenges of small businesses.
Yeah, and that's like kind of every small business people I kind of talk to, like it's the same thing. It's just like they're helping out other people. They got help along the way from other small businesses and other people. Everyone just seems to be kind of in the same boat and all helping each other out, which is so awesome to see.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the great things about, being a family-run small business, I feel like.
Yep.
But yeah, what you guys do is awesome over there. I mean, I've been in there several times, and it's kind of grown to this awesome thing. You can see kind of like the whole process inside the wall sometimes too, and you got all this equipment and everything. So it's good to see where it's gone for sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any doubts at the beginning that how this is going to work out?
I think with any business you have doubts.
Yeah.
And then you wake up each day and you take that one step forward, see where that lands, and then see if you can keep taking other steps. So definitely doubts for me, but
even just going back to building the stills, I've soldered not my whole life, but I'm proficient in that. And going into welding, the first still we did soft solder and like hand pounded rivets, and then the special collars we used to put the helmet on the actual still was stainless steel. So then we had to figure out, well, how do you weld copper to stainless steel?
Yeah.
And that was like a month of struggle. And like we had like, what are we going to do? We just built this whole thing. We have the patterns we cut out, and just constant roadblocks, but just knowing you're going to get through it. So I didn't have the doubt, but it was definitely like you just sit there with your hands on your head like, all right, now I got to figure this out. And you didn't even think it was going to be a challenge.
Which I vividly remember that moment. And I knew he had serious self-doubt, but it was actually, we have 2 small kids, and it was an awesome moment for them to see him encounter these major challenges and roadblocks and doubt and coming across a problem that he wasn't quite sure if he was going to be able to figure out, but to keep the perseverance. So that was just a great model for them to see, and that's why we actually love family businesses, just instilling work ethic and just following your dreams.
Yeah, for sure. And you've probably got a lot of support from family members and friends, stuff like that along the way, just kind of helping along, encouraging, even when you have that self-doubt. There is something to be said about the small business, and growing up under a small business. Like I grew up with my dad owning a small business, and along the way, you learn a lot as a child from it for sure.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of passing it on to the next generation is a very important part of it, I feel like.
Yeah, it is.
It's so great, yeah. And I had Shane Smith, I don't know if you know him from Smith's Leather.
Yeah,
he came
he's
in,
awesome.
he kind of talked about the same type of thing. Like he has kids that are growing up and, underneath him, watching him, what he does every day and what they do, and, working alongside him. And it's like a very important part of it, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, and so what was your first, like, the first business you guys started? Because the Wiggly Bridge was the newest one, correct? Yep.
Yeah, so my grandfather retired from the telephone company, and his retirement was deciding to buy a campground. And so he just loved, he had a motorhome, and he would travel to Florida and then come up.
Yep.
And he actually stayed at Flags Campground.
Oh, really? Yep.
So he was like, my dream someday is to own a campground. So when he retired, he bought the Burnette's campground, and that was kind of the start of it all. It had a couple storefronts out front, which it was a service gas station a while back. It's been converted into a cafe at this point. So that's what kicked it off.
That was the kickoff, right? Your grandfather kind of started the whole trend.
Yep.
Yeah. And he kept the name Burnette's Campground. That's how he bought it, because back then the B section in the phone book was before the W instead of Woods.
Yep.
So we've kept it.
Oh, that makes back then I feel like a lot of businesses would do that back then for sure. They think about the phone book in the alphabetical way of it. It's funny.
Yeah.
You see like A1 is a big like one of those, or anything with an A in front of it. That's so funny.
And the campground is actually how David and I met. My parents actually got a camper to go into the campground. We vacationed in York all the time. And when we got our camper, I went up with my parents to visit, and I met David's mom, and she came right up to me and was like,
I've got
oh
a
my
son.
gosh.
I've got a
So she
son.
said, I've got a son who's single. Are you single? And David ran away all red-faced.
Oh, yeah. That's like super, not embarrassing, but it was like, it must have meant something
Yeah.
with her, because it was more than just the casual, oh, I have a son, from like all people that come into the office at the campground.
Yeah,
It was like, oh man, this could be real.
Yeah. Well, and now it is almost 20 years later.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. So
Yeah.
it kind of, even like connections like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Just like, you know, if they never bought that campground, then maybe you guys never, you know,
Yeah.
found each other.
Domino
Which
effect.
is crazy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a big domino effect the whole way.
Yeah.
And the campground is an interesting business in general, especially in Southern Maine. I feel like there's been so much happening in terms of campgrounds. I work for Jeremy Reynolds at Anchor, and he owns Pine de Rosa and
Oh, yeah.
those
yeah.
ones. So he's always talking about everything that's happening in the campground world with
Yeah.
big corporations coming in and
Scooping them up.
that type of thing, scooping up for just crazy amounts of money.
Yeah.
So it's always good to see like, you know, families that run it, like Jeremy and his family, like are there on the campsite ground every day doing
Yep.
stuff, and
Yep.
you guys are similar to that. So like,
When
again,
I grew up, a lot of the people in the park were like grandparents to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do my route of like, okay, I'm going to get cookies here, I'm going to get candy here. I learned how to play cribbage. And our kids are experiencing that same thing.
Yeah.
Just
Exactly.
people, hey, come on in the trailer and we'll just kind of hang out and
Play
live
games.
life.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh,
But
that's
it's,
awesome.
It's crazy that we live in people's vacation destination.
Yeah, exactly.
It's when we go away for a bit and like you come over and go over the 95 bridge. I don't know, I get a feeling, I feel like a lot of people do, we're just like, I'm home, or I'm on the way
here.
back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's like you're over that bridge, you're like, I'm here. We've made it. We made it back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, like, especially like vacationers, they have like a similar feeling. What's like, oh, like I can take a deep breath. Like I'm away for the next week. I'm
Yeah.
having fun up here. And for us, we're lucky to be able to call it like where we are all the time.
We really are. And we try and remind our kids that they grew up here not knowing any different. But it's like, you have no idea how lucky you are to have like the ocean, the
Trails,
mountains.
everything.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, a combination of like everything, just
Yeah.
within minutes of your front door, which is so great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's just a great place to be in, and like we were talking, like small business wise, like York's like super unique in terms of small business. They don't allow chain restaurants to come in, stuff
Yep.
like that. They've really kind of promoted people like you to
Small
do things
businesses.
like this,
Yeah.
which is so great. So yeah, I think that's like something that's really good to preserve and keep moving.
Absolutely.
But yeah, how so in terms of that, so kind of your grandfather kind of kicked off the whole thing, and then somewhere along the lines your father started some stuff and everything, and then kinda
Yep.
you came along and grew it to what it is today.
Yeah, my dad veered off a little bit, and he started like a water filtration company, and then got into the car wash industry. And then when my grandfather had passed away, he kind of came back in and started running everything,
Yep.
and really focused back on all that. So it was interesting to see kind of him want to go and do his own thing.
Yeah, and it's important, I feel like, too, to do
I
that.
do.
Yeah, it's important to not only work for just your family. Like, I feel like your whole life, like, I worked for my dad for a number of years, but my first job wasn't even for him. It was, he said, go get a job somewhere else, and
I
then
think
come
that's
back and
important.
figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, a lot of people will see where we are now, but they haven't seen the road that we've traveled. Like there was a lot of failures, like especially for your dad, a lot of businesses he started that didn't work out.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
those are the experiences that build to who you are today. So life's definitely not without challenges for anyone.
No, for sure. There's so much to learn along the way. Like me
Yeah.
personally, like I've done a couple things that just didn't pan out at all. You
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
just kind of learn from it. All right, what's the next thing? I think a lot of people say like you got to start like your first like 5 businesses or whatever like usually fail
Yeah.
until you figure it out and learn from all those and start something that you can grow and become successful at. So yeah, that's great. But I do think it's really important to not only just like work on one thing your whole life. You gotta go out and see if there's anything else you enjoy, and maybe come back and learn to love it or
Yeah.
something like that for sure.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's a very important part about that. So that's awesome to hear.
Yep.
So yeah, and in terms of, I think there's one big thing that you guys have involved with recently.
Yeah.
In terms of the question 12 on the ballot for the town of York. Just kind of give me a rundown on kind of what that is and how that affects you guys and other businesses and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's a citizen's petition, which only required 100 signatures, and you can get an item put on the ballot, the referendum. And this particular one is specifically for distilling, production, or the aging of spirits.
Yep.
And it's using setbacks, supposedly from Kentucky's zoning ordinance. That would be 200 and 400 feet setbacks, 200 from the property line and 400 feet to another residential property, pretty much, and requiring a minimum of 25 acres, which isn't good for us at all. We only have like a 8.7 acre lot right now.
Yep.
And the setbacks were already
Yeah,
too close to
grandfathered.
that.
Yeah.
So we're not really grandfathered. A lot of people in the town think like, oh, this doesn't affect you, the way it's kind of been positioned by the curators of this ordinance. But we just got approval actually for a kitchen expansion and an adjustment for our handicap ramp to make it more ADA compliant.
Yep.
And if these regulations were in place, it would have not allowed us to even do that. So if we wanted to put a little dormer over a door, no. So if we get any closer to a property line, it's not allowed.
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge where we are a small business and we live in town. I think that all of us want the same. We want what's best for York and we want what's best for our kids. We raise our kids here, and when we had heard that this ordinance was put through without any consideration of like fact-based restrictions on an industry like ours, it makes it tough. And we're trying our best to defeat it. We've even been in contact with Kentucky, where the people who put this ordinance through have said it was based on, and even Kentucky has distinguishing parts of what's a craft distillery and what's a large distillery.
I have to imagine that a lot of distilleries in Kentucky are, multiple times the size of what you guys
Absolutely.
have got going over there.
Like I think we're 0.05% the scale of like a full-size Kentucky.
Yeah.
River, so
Yeah,
like
and
very minuscule.
what Kentucky considers as a craft distillery, we are only 3% of that.
Oh, wow.
So if we looked at Kentucky ordinances for craft distilleries, which are already exponentially bigger than we are, we would have less restrictions than what we already follow in York. So York has already done a good job with ordinance requirements. We are on industrial land, and we follow all those.
Yep.
So having this ordinance be put on top of us, and where we're the only distillery in town, it feels very targeted, and targeted ordinances just aren't okay.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
We don't want to harm anything, and we actually, especially going through this process, we don't want to become a big conglomerate that then you lose the small business and family feel.
Yeah, and I imagine that even the lot you guys are on now, you probably wouldn't even have the capabilities of that lot to like expand to a big conglomerate. You'd
Right,
have to
you
move your
couldn't.
production anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this all kind of started with you guys proposing adding on and increasing your storage facilities there.
Yep.
Yeah, we weren't even trying to make more product. We were just trying to make better product. So
Yep.
when we first started going back to 5-gallon barrels, we were like, okay, those age between 6 and 18 months. Then we went to 10 and 30. So 30-gallon barrels we were finding is like 2 to 5 years.
Yep.
Well, now we're in 53-gallon barrels, and we're finding like 5 to 8 years. So what we had built the first building for to hold, I think, around 1,200 barrels, we need double that size to age stuff. Twice
Age
as
stuff,
long.
yep. And I imagine that you have different, variations that some are aging longer than others now at this point.
Yeah, the bottle and bond, we age a little bit longer just to get.
Yeah. So you have those ones kind of in there, taking up space, and then you have the younger stuff, the stuff that's not being aged as long, that's got to go in still, but
Right.
you got more of the other stuff in, so I'm sure it becomes like a storage issue.
Oh, yeah.
When we
across the
had
board.
applied for the expansion, it was terrible timing because there was a New York Times article that was released on Jack Daniels on whiskey fungus.
Yep.
And so
that's kind of the big word that
Yes.
you see all over online right now and
Yeah.
everything is this whiskey fungus.
and reasonably, and I can understand our abutters were concerned with that. They're like,
Yep.
we abut a distillery, and now this article is showing this black, thick stuff
Of
on
course,
these
yeah.
houses down there. So their concerns were valid, and we have done everything that we have and can do to show that, one, that we are small, and any mycologist agrees that the size of the distillery and the scope, it does matter. And so we've been through multiple rounds of tests, and we decided to recently, we found a mycologist, had her do a blind study of the area, and actually do DNA testing of all the mycologists that we talked to definitively see if there is whiskey fungus in the area. The best you can do is DNA. So she did DNA in a 1.5 kilometer radius, and there was no whiskey fungus found at all in York, which it made sense. We weren't super surprised because of our size.
Yep.
Where this whiskey fungus is found, you're talking millions of barrels aging, and we only have 1,200.
Yeah, I was reading a couple articles that I saw, and everything that's being compared to, we were talking like Jack Daniels, Buffalo Trace, like these giant companies that I was looking at the size of their like storage. I'm like, this is like 35,000 square feet of storage, like this and that, and obviously those concerns clear about when you see an article like that where it's like this stuff. You're like, oh, I'm right next to a distillery. Like, oh, how does this affect me?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely like a valid concern. But I mean, if you go out and you're doing all the measures you guys can do to ensure that, this is safe and you're testing. Like you said, you had an independent, mycologist come out and do these tests and conclude that there wasn't whiskey fungus. So I think that, it's kind of different levels of comparison there, it sounds like.
For sure. Yeah. And that matters, especially when you're talking small business. I mean, these restrictions of Article 12 will put us out. We can't, we'll be done if it passes. So it's important that people vote no.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to protect, our small businesses, and and you guys live in town, and probably know people that are neighbors and stuff like that. So you do care about,
absolutely,
how something like that can affect it, and if you wouldn't put something out that's like, you're doing whiskey fungus over there and stuff, like you're not going to be about that. So the local business matters to you guys because that's what kind of has allowed you guys to grow and everything. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. It was just looking for a lot of people looking at from the outside, just like kind of watching it go along. And you guys have been very vocal in the fact, which is I think great. And you've received a lot of support from the locals too.
Yeah, that has been nice to see. A year ago, when we were starting the whole process, we kind of kept to ourselves. We kind of like put our head down and work type people.
Yep.
And when this all came out, we thought that it was a situation that needed to be handled with the planning board, and we didn't really speak up much. We just did our work and thought we could present it, but not speaking up kind of was detrimental to us. And so now we have all the facts, all of our due diligence, and we can't not be vocal.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have done your research and due diligence on it, and the stuff I've seen you guys put forth, definitely it makes sense from an outside perspective on it too.
Thank you.
Definitely a distraction from our day-to-day life.
Yes.
To focus back on.
I'm sure it's a big speed bump that you guys are been dealing with for a while now. So kind of, and they come up all the time as small businesses and everything, just stuff that you're not expecting, or just takes away from like the fact that you're just trying to grow a business and do good and that type of thing. You guys have grown immensely in like recent years. I mean, are you guys kind of nationwide at this point in terms of some of your product?
We're coast to coast, but not filled in between. So just different pop-up stores. Like we're on Beverly Hills. There's a liquor store.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's really random how
That's awesome.
it flourishes. I think like a whiskey bar will say, I want every single whiskey in the world in my bar, so they find their source to get it. But we're focused New England, really, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts.
Yep.
Right now is our focus.
Yeah, local.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just like, and it's not like a whole lot of distilleries in this area either. So you guys are kind of unique in that fact, I feel like.
Yeah, I think was it 9 craft distilleries in Maine?
In the state,
yeah. Yeah, there's a few of them that I've been to, like the Split Rock one.
Yeah.
That I love, like those guys do some great stuff. They do like organic whiskey, which I found is like a different a whole different like flavor profile than kind of just regular whiskey.
Right.
Which is interesting. I never really, you wouldn't think it would, but it's just like totally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so awesome. And you guys with the tasting room, obviously, that's been a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. We make craft cocktails there, and the cocktails that we make sometimes can take 3 to 5 minutes to make just because we're using fresh ingredients and they're complicated, but they're really balanced and delicious.
Yeah, they are good. I've been there a few times and had them. They're awesome.
Hoping to add food soon.
Yeah, so that's what your kitchen's going to be, food, hopefully?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
we had
so
a
awesome.
food trailer, 2018-ish?
It was right before COVID.
Before COVID, and we were making some yummy stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just like little essences of our spirit products in there too. We had like a gin kissed burger where we would put a little bit of gin on the griddle, and it would just absorb the essence of our gin.
Yeah.
We would put bourbon in the chicken wing sauce and stuff like that.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
we
That's
just
going to be
wanna-
really good. This sounds exciting to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we want it to
we're-
be the experience of.
Yeah.
welcome
And
to
you
the
guys, and you do make more than whiskey now, correct?
Yeah.
You guys are making, you make gin,
Yeah.
rum.
vodka, agave spirits.
Yep.
We just released a single malt last year, and then we're constantly working with White Mountain Winery. They're up in Conway, North Conway, and we'll give them old whiskey barrels to age their wines in, and then we'll get those back. And they do a lot of fruity, sweet, like dessert style wines in our barrels, and we'll age our bourbon on top of that after to get like a little finish. So we have a Dave's Special Barrel Project line, and those typically are pulled out of that.
That's awesome. So how many, you guys got a lot of collaborations with local businesses and stuff and other people around?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of small business too, is we're able to do these small, cool collaborations. We work with Some Brewing down the street from us. They use our barrels and vice versa. And then Anthony's Food Shop, we take their green coffee beans and we age them in a freshly dumped bourbon barrel to make barrel-aged coffee, which has been a really successful and cool
It's
collaboration.
delicious, yeah. It really fills your whole house up with aroma. It's,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
That's super cool. Yeah, I never even thought of that. And Some opened up a kitchen down
Yeah.
at their place recently too, I saw.
Yeah, we can't wait to try that out, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do our kitchen. The proponents of Article 12, we're sensing that they're going to try and appeal. So hopefully we'll see that through. But
Yeah, I mean, you guys have got a lot of support and stuff, so I think, we'll see come the next few days here or weeks.
I know.
But it'll be a relief from you guys, I'm sure, once it's all
we
hopefully
can't
settled
wait.
and everything. So yeah, and staying on the lines, I guess, of small business in York, kind of, I talk about this a lot because it's kind of like York, if we think about Southern Maine in general and kind of what it is and how it's so great for small business, I look at other towns like Gunkwit and Wells and stuff and kind of try to compare them to York, Portsmouth, Kittery. And I feel like there's a lot of growth in recent years just in general. Like you go to Gunkwit like 10 years ago and there's like half the amount of people there at any given time, I feel like. And another big thing has just been extending, the summer season to the shoulder seasons and winters and getting people to come to these tourist destinations to keep these businesses thriving. A lot more stayed open year-round stuff. And one thing that I always talk about is like the revitalization of the York Village area.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like so much potential down there that could be something great.
Weekend walking, and I just with the historical part of it, I just feel like there should be a constant aroma of like heating up apple cider this time of year, all the way until the holiday season. I don't know if you saw in Portsmouth, they like closed down the main street and did, like a huge dinner. Just when you were talking about Ogunquit and the communities kind of pooling together, just seeing stuff like that where all the local businesses like, hey, we've got this idea and it actually got accomplished. But I just liked how all of downtown Portsmouth seemed to get together for that moment.
Yeah, they do a lot down there. They close down the street a few times a year, I feel like. And even Ogunquit got some inspiration from that and closed down for, I think it was the Bon Air Festival or something. We had the stage in the center of town and everything. But yeah, I feel like that we're in need of like a downtown area where it's like kind of there's a vibe down there, people walking around and stuff like that. That's kind of one thing that I always look at and kind of try to figure out how we can do that.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I feel like it is. I feel like it definitely is. You got a few places down there that are like great, like talking about Shane Smith and Fat Tomato and those kind of places. I feel like there's a few more kind of destination places would be kind of what it needs for sure. In terms of kind of you guys both kind of grew up here, or Dave did. You grew up, you vacationed here?
Yep, I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Manchester, New Hampshire, so not that far away at all.
No.
What's kind of, in your guys' eyes, like the importance of kind of, the local feel of York and kind of keeping it kind of, it's a great vacation town for sure, and kind of trying to keep this as the small businesses, are the biggest deal, that type of thing. What's your guys' feelings kind of in terms of that stuff?
I think my favorite part of the town being local and supporting small businesses, you can walk into a shop and you're saying hi to people. So many people that come into the campground are like, hey, everyone's so friendly around here. And it's like, it doesn't hurt or take that much energy just to say hi or like look at someone or hold the door open for them. And I feel like people are in a rush, but we still have time for one another. That's important to me. And I think moving away, that would be like one of the critical points that I would need is if I'm walking into a place, you're not just like ignored and people's heads aren't just looking down at the ground all day. Other than that, I love the trails and stuff we have in town. Just I run periodically, and just being out away from everything, but also an hour away from anything you really need, whether you're going to Boston or Portland. I love this area.
Yeah, and working off of, the town people in general being friendly. The small businesses are the backbone, I believe, of York, and some of my favorite spots like Moose Burger in York 54, you can go in and the owners there or managers are like, you're regular, they know what you like, and it's just, I don't know, it's comforting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, that's like a great thing about small businesses. Just like you walk in, and then there's the people that basically own it. Like, are there? Like, you walk in, Wiggly Bridge. It's you guys or your father or somebody that's in there, and you're like, you're talking to people that put their life into these things, and it's their passion, and they are local. They live in town, and it's going back. Like, big thing. Like, a lot of these small businesses give back locally more than anything, for sure. It's not like going off into some national brand or something like that. It's like, it's staying here, helping the people around here, improving, everything around.
Reinvesting into our community.
Yeah, and we see that from you guys quite a bit too. In terms of all your businesses, you guys.
It's important.
Do a good job, around the holiday time, stuff like that. There's always stuff going on, so it's very important. Awesome. Anything else you guys want to share or talk about while we have some time here?
Not that I can pinpoint at the moment.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out here. I really do. And you guys have been gracious enough to host my first time Bone Buyers Workshop event that I'm super excited about.
Coming up.
It is coming up. We put out tickets, and I think we have about 20 people coming so far.
Sweet.
So got to do a couple more pushes and hopefully get some more people there, but it should be good.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I appreciate that. I think it's important that young people, the aspect of York and everything is now everything's going up in value because everyone wants to be here.
You're right.
Home values, that is, and just trying to get, keep younger people in town is becoming increasingly difficult. I'm 24, and a lot of my friends, are living with their parents currently, but they are going to want to move out and go somewhere, and it's just tough with no rentals in town and all this stuff. So it's important to kind of, and there's a huge rhetoric that young people are never going to be able to buy a house in this area, ever, which I don't think is all the way true. I think there's opportunity out there, and it's just a different way of looking at it. So I think that's great. You guys are hosting that. I thank you very much, because I want to be able to show everyone that you can move back to York someday.
Just wait for the dip, right?
Wait for the dip, or you buy out in South Berwick for a little while and then build some equity, come back to York, that type of thing. So that will be happening in around a month or so. So thank you very much for that. But and one last thing to leave off is vote no on 12.
Yes,
for you guys, for sure.
Please.
Yeah, I think that what you guys are doing are great. You guys are huge stewardess in the town, and you're doing everything right too.
Awesome.
From
Thank
everything
you.
we see from the outside. So thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys coming on here. Visit Wiggly Bridge Distillery, or any of your other businesses along the way too.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very
having
much,
us.
guys.
Thank you.